From edge-of-your-seat title changes being stolen away by a subtle utilizing of the rules, to cocky stars getting a little too carried away with themselves, these WWE finishers were all ultimately looked after in rather intelligent ways. I'm Gareth from What Culture Wrestling, and here are the 10 best ways WWE protected finishers. Number 10, the Hulkster misses his vital leg drop against the Warrior. When the immortal Hulk Hogan finally collided with the balmy Ultimate Warrior on the grandest stage of them all back at the 6th edition of WWE's showpiece WrestleMania event, fans knew that something simply had to give. With both men possessing finishers that were known for being rather effective, it stood to reason that should either megastar nail the other with their match ender, that would be that. So in order to keep from squeezing some of the drama and stardust out of either Icon's splash or leg drop conclusion, the subtly brilliant call was made for the WWE Champion Hogan to lay out his Intercontinental Championship holding challenger with a big boot before ultimately missing his infamous touch of death via hamstring to the mug. Warrior therefore didn't diminish the power of Hogan's strongest weapon en route to nailing his own all-conquering finisher shortly after for the win. And Hogan's leg drop mystique would be maintained for that little bit longer. Number 9, Jake Roberts takes too long to pin Taker post DDTs. Coming in a Mania 8 bout which pitted Jake the Snake Roberts against The Undertaker, a rather brief showcase of the two's captivating talents was capped off with a set of DDTs that looked destined to kill off the dead man's Mania streak only 2 matches in. See, back then, the Snake's trusty drilling of a skull into the mat wasn't quite the transitional move it has become today, and could usually be called upon to end the day against most mortal men. So after already hitting one sickening DDT on the indomitable Phenom, Roberts would nail another before deciding that it was about time he took out Taker's equalizer Paul Bearer at ringside. Only this distraction cheekily opened the door for the Demon of Death Valley to recover, as he'd eventually smash Roberts with a tombstone piledriver on the outside on his way to victory. The dual set of DDTs still felt catastrophic, but the Snake's short fuse was ultimately his downfall. Number 8, the Fiend's mandible claw is low-blowed out of the equation by Roman, shining a light on something a certain former Universal monstrosity had to say in regards to the Tribal Chief's current reign as the all-conquering Universal Champion. Roman Reigns never actually managed to specifically overcome the threat of Bray Wyatt's Fiend inside of a WWE ring. I know, how crazy. No doubt leaving the stage set for a match that time and time again looked to be on the cards, the head of the table's run with the title was actually kicked off with another piece of subtly intelligent business. Instead of having Reigns simply bulldoze through both Wyatt and Braun Strowman at Payback 2020, after the pair had already obliterated each other, the returning face of the company found it initially quite tough to keep both massive men down. In fact, the Fiend was even able to block an incoming chair assault and lock his mandible claw on the eventual title holder. However, a swift shot to his fiendish balls quickly dumped Wyatt out of proceedings and set the stage for a spear on Strowman for the win. The fear and dread that led to the desperate shot to the demonic nuts of Wyatt's creature, though, told a story of a move that kept even the Tribal Chief awake at night. Number 7, Roman Reigns spears Brock Lesnar into oblivion and victory. With only a handful of stars ever having the honor of kicking out of the big dog signature match ender at that moment in time, with Brock Lesnar actually digging it out after being on the end of 2 consecutive spears at WrestleMania 34. WWE were clearly in the mood to restore some gravitas to the finisher heading into the greatest Royal Rumble Saudi Super Show, though still not at the expense of Brock's run with the Universal strap. So instead of having the Beast fall to Vinnie Mac's pride and joy inside of a steel cage, the weapon Reigns would put just about any other mortal on the planet away with was used to smash Lesnar straight out of the structure. Reigns and his spear still looked like the stuff of most folks' nightmares, but the champ walked out with his belt on a technicality after supposedly hitting the ground first. We'll let you decide if that was actually the case. Number 6, Alexa Bliss cashes in mid Ronda Rousey armbar. Ronda Rousey went on an absolute tear on the back of a Mania 34 debut. Before long, the baddest woman on the planet was understandably shoved into the Raw Women's Championship picture, taking on then title holder Nia Jax at Money in the Bank, as the former UFC bantamweight champion eyed up her first piece of WWE gold. In order to keep Ronnie from having to suffer her first loss, keep fans waiting for that eventual title win, and maintain the aura and legitimacy of her limb-snapping armbar though, an opportunistic star was thrown into the mix late on, jumping Rousey just as she had her signature submission locked in on Jax, a move move that nobody had wrestled free from at this point, Alexa Bliss would violently force a DQ win for Ronda, as she ultimately cashed in her newly won briefcase to become the new champ. Rousey's armbar still felt like a move that either led to a tap or snap, but WWE were able to cheekily keep the twists and turns a-coming on the road to her inevitable coronation. Number 5, the clock hit 0 as HBK hit Sweet Chin Music against Angle. Though the Iron Man concept understandably isn't for everyone. What with much of the drama usually only unfolding in the closing seconds of whatever time limit has been slapped onto the match in question, said last few beats don't have a habit of being bloody gripping. And that was most definitely the case when it came time for Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle's highly anticipated Round 3 back in 2005, with both men coming into their 30-minute affair on Raw holding a win apiece. However, in order to keep both men looking as strong as humanly possible, with perhaps another jaw-dropping pay-per-view contest in mind later down the road, the decision was made to have the match run out to a 2-all draw. But not before HBK could hit his crowd-popping typical match ender as the clock ran down. As Angle was caught flush on the jaw, the clock left only 4 seconds for Michaels to land on his rival and seal the deal. By the time he'd mustered the strength to do just that, the time was royally up. But the sight of Angle staying down for what would have been an emphatic 3 still sold the catastrophic impact of Sweet Chin Music. Number 4, Paul Heyman and CM Punk used the urn to survive a tombstone, jumping back into a streak that became perhaps even more prestigious than challenging for a world championship on the grandest stage of them all. There was actually a moment in time when the best in the world managed to pull off the unthinkable. Coming into WrestleMania 29, CM Punk and Paul Heyman had done everything in their power to get inside the head of the usually impenetrable Undertaker. And while many were quick to question the use of the urn and Paul Bearer throughout the program, especially in light of the Phenom's former manager's real-life passing, it was this utilization of the former that would ultimately pay dividends for the despicable Punk. Well, for a bit. After eating a GTS, Taker would stumble into a tombstone piledriver on his foe. Yet with Heyman subtly brandishing the urn in the dead man's face, the power of the object appeared to lessen the effects of this dramatic finisher. Or at least that's how Heyman sold the moment post-Punk kickout. The move itself still felt as epic as ever, of course. On this specific occasion, though, the combination of a wounded Taker and mystical object was enough to buy the chick magnet a few more minutes. Number 3, Triple H's pedigree loses nothing from an opportunistic punt. A night famed for Sorry I Love You, Money Mayweather fisting a giant, and a phenomenal main event, also played host to one of the craftiest sections of finisher preservation you ever did see, coming during a WWE Championship 15-minute shootout between Randy Orton, John Cena, and Triple H. That last perennial main eventer looked to have secured yet another notch on his World Championship belt, after pulverizing the 2008 Royal Rumble winner with his trademark pedigree. But with the boss still clearly wanting his apex predator to walk out of the building holding the top strap, a vicious punt was sent his son-in-law's way mid-pin attempt, as Orton desperately picked the scraps of Tripp's pedigree chum. With Orton not actually hitting Cena with another move and successfully retaining his belt, thanks to the game's finisher keeping Cena down for the count, the move itself still felt as powerful as ever, despite the fact Triple H left the Citrus Bowl empty-handed. Number 2, Santino Marella's comedy shtick leads to an all-powerful Cobra. Of all the names you're likely expected to see rock up on a list of this ilk, WWE's go-to butt of the jokes for much of his tenure with the company likely wasn't at the forefront of your mind. But as the record incredibly shows, not only was Santino Marella's brilliantly hammy Cobra finishing strike to the throat a move that was unexpectedly protected throughout his WWE run, but it was also only ever kicked out of on 2 occasions, those stars being Daniel Bryan and Sheamus, with that former icon's kickout at Elimination Chamber 2012 still sitting as one of the most electric pops of the PG era. As already mentioned, WWE's presentation of Santino as a strictly comedic character for the most part led to the performer rarely being in a position or bout of any real consequence, or even being in a match at all, as a lot of his shtick went down in backstage segments, etc. So when he did ultimately find the time to fully whip out his Cobra in a contest, steady now, it usually meant he was coming away with a rousing victory, and adding more names to a surprisingly impressive list of scalps. Number 1, Seth Rollins just about escapes his Red Arrow fate. Speaking of frankly ridiculous pops coming on the back of a pin breakup that seemed simply too unbelievable to actually be true, it's time to wander back to a time when a certain bastard was making his initial jaw-dropping WWE waves in August 2015, with the then Neville being thrown into an eye-catching WWE Championship match against Seth Rollins on Raw. A few months into the the Architects' first run with the top strap, very few really expected the man that gravity forgot to come away with a career-making win. But then something miraculous happened. Poised on the top rope, the former NXT champion absolutely broke the champ with a picture-perfect red arrow. However, with Neville being a little too enthusiastic with the cover that all but confirmed his first ever WWE World Championship win, Rollins' legs found themselves tied up in the ropes, and the ref was forced to call off the count. A state of shock and confusion washed over an arena utterly convinced the underdog had done enough. Yet the red arrow itself still felt like a weapon capable of firing Pac all the way to the top someday. And that's our list. Know of any other awesome ways WWE protected finishers? Let us know all about them in the comment section right down below, and do not forget to like, share, and click on that subscribe button while you're at it. Also, if you're into this kind of thing, head on over to whatculture.com and find some more incredible articles just like the one this video you're watching right now is based on. I've been Gareth from What Culture Wrestling. Thank you as always for clicking on this video today, and I'm sure I'll see you very, very soon. Bye bye.